David Pomeranz, Chief Operating Officer of the Hebrew Home. How has Medicaid redesign affected your business?
Well, it's not only affected the Hebrew Home, it's affected seniors throughout New York State. It really is a historic time. The Medicaid system in our state had a lot of noble purposes, did a lot of good work, but sort of got broken down. Really couldn't keep up with the number of people, with the complexity of needs, a lot of abuse in the system, and I think the governor's attempts to revamp the Medicaid system are very much welcomed by people. The speed for which it's being done has been a challenge. Literally, the analogy I use is flying a plane and having the radar change while you're flying. So from a provider standpoint, or more importantly from a client standpoint, it's very hard to figure out what's changed, how it's changed, when it's changed, what's changed. It's a lot going on, and older people, certainly some younger too, don't love change. So to try and figure out what's covered by what program is entitled to it, how do you enroll, how do you disenroll, what does managed care mean? To many people, managed care was sort of a curse word for many years. In our state, managed care has become a very positive word because it'll allow a provider to truly manage care. One of the reasons the Medicaid system sort of went offline a little bit was what we call Dr. Bingo, where a senior would go from provider to provider to provider, get a different medication from each one, and there was no coordination, nobody looking at the full picture to see what was going on with a person, fragmented care. With managed care, there's sort of a quarterback involved, so we think in the Medicaid redesign, when it's fully implemented, fully understood, people will have a better health outcome. These plans, which are capitated in New York State, put the pressure on the provider to provide cost-efficient care, so that they're doing things on a health promotion basis. So it's a matter of keeping people from getting sicker and needing more care. It's a whole wellness-based philosophy, which I think is welcomed in the state of New York.
One of the questioners in our audience today at the City and State Conference described some of the problems with aging right now as an aging tsunami with the growth of the elderly population. Is that a real phenomenon? Is that something that you are really cognizant of and addressing at Hebrew Home?
Yeah, I know. When you look at the statistics, people are living longer. There are more resources. For example, the Hebrew Home, we used to get in people much younger. Now with resources and home care and assisted living and options in managed care, people are coming in sicker later in life. So I think what you're feeling, what you're seeing and what you're talking about is really the phenomenon of a longer life. The phenomenon of longer life sometimes is enhanced life, and sometimes it provides a more complicated care. And I think the tsunami that's coming is trying to figure out how all of it will play out, making sure you're able to address all the complexity of needs as they go around us. Life expectancy in our country has greatly changed over the last 25 years. Technology is changing all the time. We now have much better systems to monitor people, even when they're home. Technology to see if people are moving around apartments. All these things are in place to keep people living longer, and with them living longer, it creates greater burden on the providers. So are there enough nursing home beds, enough home care workers? So I think it's a challenge is to make sure that the services keep up with the pace of the aging population.
With the increase in the size of the aging population, there's been a much greater emphasis upon the providing of services to that population. We've heard about aging in place, more holistic approach to healthcare, to elderly services. What are some of the innovations that you are undertaking at Hebrew Home? How has your service providing changed over the last decade or so?
Well, I've been at the home for 28 years, and if you look at the evolution of our care, we started as a homeless shelter in Harlem in 1917. Since then, obviously, we moved to Riverdale and on a beautiful campus and providing nursing home services. That was sort of our core business for many years. Then we expanded into community services, adult daycare, home care, and doing other things. We're sort of pulled into those directions because people want our quality of care that they were getting in the nursing home. They want to have that available to them on the outside. So we've had to reinvent ourselves to create new business lines, to create new programs. We created adult daycare centers, all night programs to handle daycare clients. And I think the latest thing that's apparent is technology. We created an app for people who are dealing with people with Alzheimer's, so it's available on the iPhone for people to purchase to manage their care. But more importantly, it's the technology that goes into the homes. When you say you can put in a monitor which allows, if nobody moves with a certain number of time, to be able to track when a refrigerator door is open or not open. It's a little bit of Big Brother, but it's also a little bit of safety. So if you have a pill box which is weighted, and you can tell that weight has changed, then you know they've taken their pills. So I think there's a real Again, cost being part of everything. And if you can keep people in less costly settings with some of these technologies and having them graduate to hospitalizations and long-term care placements, then I think it's favorable. And I think people are looking with cost in mind at everything, quality of care and cost. Sometimes technology fills that void very nicely. So we're looking now currently at how we can take that smart home and make it work for people. So we have telemedicine monitors, so somebody can have their blood pressure checked, it's sent to their doctor, which means they don't have to get into an accessoride, they don't have to drive to a doctor's office, they don't have to wait a few hours, and they're not potentially falling on the ice on their way there. So all these things are with cost in mind, but with quality as the center focus.
And you talked about some of the frustrations you had with the speed of the implementation of the Medicaid redesign. What else can government do to help an organization like yours? I mean, what are your priorities from a policy standpoint?
I think getting to answers. I think the answers are sort of happening along the way, and I think they need to be more focused, quicker answers given to providers. For example, when we do our budgeting, we don't have rates from the previous year. So how do you do a budget when you don't have your rate from last year? So I think having them do their work a little bit faster, not carelessly, but faster, to give us better rocks to build from, will allow us to do our job better. The problem is they don't always have the manpower and the resources on their end either. So everybody's trying their best, government, providers, to try and do the right thing, but sometimes there's no time out you can call and get it all figured out and done right. They're reinventing things, they're putting forth legislation and changes quicker than they have a chance to figure out all the answers. From a provider standpoint, we need those answers to do our job better. So.
And what about from an intergovernmental standpoint? I mean, is it frustrating for you? Is there adequate communication between the federal, the state, and the city government in all the ways that it impacts your organization?
Well, I would say it's never good enough. I think the communication involves multiple layers of government and multiple complexities of each issue. So just getting the waiver approved after all these years for the state was a complex negotiation with the federal government. So I think no would be my answer. I don't think it's good enough. But I don't think it's because people aren't trying. Again, I think it's more to the fact that there's so much going on. You have administrations both federally and locally, they're trying to do the right thing. I don't think there's anybody rowing in the other direction. It's just a matter of priority setting and focus and resources. A lot of this comes down to resources. When people are doing multiple projects and multiple cost rate setting, they can't always focus on each individual program as specifically as we'd like them to and as quickly as we'd like them to.